So let's call the meeting to order. It's 7:01 on July 6th. Our Milton Community Preservation Committee is called to order. My name is Tom Callahan. I'm the chair of the committee. And let's go around for introductions.
Jenny Russell, Vice Chair.
Pete Jackson at large.
Steve O'Donnell, Historical Commission.
Kathleen O'Donnell at large.
And
Robbie Powers for the Housing Authority.
And
Hal Munger for Planning Board.
Great. Thank you, everybody. And we will get going with the first agenda item is a reorganization discussion. We need a vote on a new chair, vice chair, and financial liaison for the coming year. So I open the floor for discussion. Nominations.
Are the current officers willing to serve again? Would be the question. Yes.
That would have been my question.
Great minds.
If you have a good thing, why change it?
Yes, I would say that.
Yes, I think the answer is yes for all.
Okay, so you would not be putting a Calvin Coolidge. Just checking.
But the floor is open for any nominations.
Al and Rob.
Whoa.
So
I nominate Tom Callahan as chair.
I second that.
Okay, there's been one nomination for Tom Callahan as chair, and the second.
I would nominate Jenny as vice chair and, sorry,
Well,
it was,
what's your preference, to take them all at once?
I was
Gonna
gonna
do as a slate.
do it all at once.
So you want to add to that?
Add to the slate, I would propose to add Jenny Russell as vice chair and Pete Jackson as our financial liaison.
Okay,
Second.
and Robbie, would you consider that a friendly amendment?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion to nominate Tom Callahan as chair, Jenny Russell as vice chair, Pete Jackson as financial liaison. And it's been seconded. Any other nominations? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call. Kathleen?
I would vote in favor gladly.
Steve?
In favor.
Robbie?
Yes.
Hal?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
Jenny?
Yes.
Yes. You're stuck with us for another year.
Thank you.
Always the painful
We'll
part
waive
of
the speech.
the meeting.
So is
One of
that,
these years,
Yeah.
it's not gonna be so easy.
is that a reorganization or not?
Yes,
Officially a reorganization. Yes, so the next thing on the agenda is approval.
with thanks from Grateful Nation. So, yeah.
Yeah, by the way, thank you for your confidence. We will endeavor to uphold that confidence over the year. Approval of the June 22nd, 2026 minutes, which again, Jenny beautifully prepared.
I would move to approve the minutes.
Second.
All right, so motion in a second. Any comments, any additions or edits? Hearing none, all in favor, I have to roll call. Jenny?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Hal?
Yes.
Robbie?
Yes.
And Tom votes yes as well. All right, we can bring our first presentation to the well, first, Nick, why don't you go first? Because the first three or three and a half discussion items, what's not on the agenda, but I do want Nick to speak to is also some of the timing of the Tucker project that we discussed last week. Obviously, we met with, was it last week? Not last week.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago or the first week? When did we meet with you? One of the last two meetings, we met with the Tucker PTO folks. So Nick, however you want to start, but between the Tucker project, the Atherton Street Fire Station, the Milton Lockup, and monuments and historic markers are all
They're all you.
you. Or
Why
part you.
don't I go in reverse order then, and then do Atherton and Tucker kind of a little bit together?
That's fine, yep.
So on the monuments and historic markers, we actually, the inspiration for this came really from looking at what the cemetery was doing with their gravestones and monuments work that the CPC funded last year, and that will be commencing, I think, very soon this summer. It just spurred us to think about our own inventory of historic markers and monuments and really lack thereof, and lack of kind of thinking about proper maintenance for long-term care of those. So our office, between the new assistant town administrator, Cody Case, and myself, reached out to Steve and others to just make sure we were not missing any on the list. So we provided a full list of those that we're seeing right now that are in the materials. We're a little vague on cost right now because we're really trying to get to a place where we understand what our needs are. We have one vendor who will be coming into town next week to look at the ones we'll put on the list and suggest a maintenance plan and inventory plan. But I think broadly the concept is similar to what the cemetery is undertaking, where they're documenting the quality and condition of all the gravestones, not the gravestones, some of the historic markers and monuments, making improvements for maintenance and long-term care, and then documenting them from there. So that is what we are proposing as the concept of the plan, seeking CPC feedback on eligibility as we work to kind of finalize what that scope might look like more specifically. There are a few that are in worse condition than others from our very unprofessional eye. But that's kind of what we're looking for assistance on, is to just validate in terms of the markers that are around town that are kind of just there and not necessarily being maintained by any specific entity, to categorize documents, record them, and then if necessary, invest in care and improvements.
So at this point, would you be just doing the inventory and a kind of a plan?
What we think is really that kind of initial inventory and evaluation.
Right.
But we'll defer to the vendors if they see one that's more in a more dire need. Maybe we'll bring forward a proposal that would improve one or two of them. But I think our concept is really inventory and evaluation as we work towards better maintenance moving forward. I shouldn't say better maintenance, in a maintenance game plan moving forward.
Jenny?
So do you expect to know a budget by the end of August, and there's deadline September? And then
That's what we're working towards. We've been reaching out to a few different vendors that work in this field, and one's been responsive so far. So we're hoping to get something more concrete after engaging with them.
And in terms of priority, how do you define priority? Is it condition, or is it danger, or is it historical value, or what?
And that's, again, just because we're really trying to keep this in a kind of a phased approach and getting that inventory to be in a place to evaluate what kind of needs to happen or what doesn't need to happen. So I don't think I have a good answer there. I think we are trying to maintain the markers we have. If those are falling into disrepair or starting to in need of attention, then we would prioritize those and then just have a game plan for the balance from there.
It would seem to me that condition is a big thing, and then maybe significance. We have something really historically significant like these monuments out here, and maybe they go to a higher priority.
Yeah, I wouldn't agree
But
with
that's
that.
something that we'll have to.
I mean, there's such a variety.
Yes,
They're all so different.
yes.
And if you're interested in doing the tercentenary ones, two are missing entirely. I mean, the 350th, I don't know if it's only the poles that are broken or the signs themselves. Those would be relatively easier. The two
Right.
tercentenary ones, we have photos of them. There are photos of them, but they're missing entirely.
So the consultant will help you come up with that criteria, or whatever.
So you just raised the issue I have is, so it's very clear CPA can fund a study and analysis like this. It's also very clear to me that CPA can fund restoration of
historic marker that is in need of it. It's not clear to me that CPA could do a new historic marker.
Right, so,
Yeah, that,
Even if it's replacing something
Right,
that
yeah.
was lost to age or whatever. I don't know, Kathleen, if you.
I looked.
Encountered that,
Yeah.
I seem to remember some discussion on the statewide level on this, that. It's potentially, it could be, like a lot of the things we've discussed, if it was part of a larger project. You can put up a sign at the softball field if it's part of a larger, capital improvements project, but not independent of a larger improvement project, or, so. So that, I'm not ready to say one way or the other, but that is something to look into, and also probably a consideration to whoever you hire to do the plan, of like, okay, what's the funding
Yeah.
strategy beyond CPA for needs that might not be CPA eligible, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, I mean, I sort of looked, because I was kind of curious about that, because they're not really, like, I always make the point that
You
it's
can't
like a
create
dirt,
history.
it's a dirt law, we have to have some
Yes,
dirt involved.
yeah.
And so, but there have been I'm just looking on the website now, lots of examples of using CPA money. Certainly for gravestones is certainly not an issue, but there are several projects that have been done over the years to fund the restoration,
Right, yeah,
replacement of existing ones. I said we wouldn't be able probably to do new ones.
Yeah.
You know,
not a recreation, but a
Restoration.
restoration.
restoration, or if you said, or you knew that you had one and it's, now it's like got hit by a truck or something, that's a replacement of an existing. What we probably couldn't fund is new monuments. New monument, like somebody wanted to build a statue to something,
Okay,
we
but
probably could.
But if he
Perhaps we-
says there were two monuments that used to be in the field and they're no longer,
He-
can we
I
recreate
Yeah,
that? That's issue.
so.
We're not gonna
those are
solve
things we can
tonight.
explore.
yeah,
And it also goes to the other project, Joe Mondugno's project, our proposal, where he proposed. The historic markers on Little Parkway, which I believe, we're gonna, goes on call, so we're gonna hear from him in a few minutes, but. I believe those are not there, he was just.
well,
hoping to-
yeah, I mean, in Hanson in 2020, they did purchase and placement of historical markers throughout the town.
Okay,
So,
Maybe that's-
I'm thinking,
alright, we need to do our research on that, but we couldn't get.
and I don't know that we're necessarily at the stage where we would be asking for that. I think that's what we're trying to get to a place to understand better what a reasonable budget would be for kind of an initial overview of everything and evaluation of everything, to then move forward into restoration, and eventually maybe replacement.
yeah, I'm just trying to see, so it was $4,000 for Hingham to do an inventory. Of its markers and that sort of thing, but that was some years ago.
And that's just an inventory. not
Yeah, it was the
really- not a
inventory and-
Professional evaluation.
Right. Preservation of the markers, and that was 2008, so add another 20% to that,
Sure.
but that, yeah. Right,
Well, you look into that and let us know.
Yes, we intend to have a proposal for September with these questions answered, but they're helpful in the meantime for us to start formulating that. Thank you.
Lockout.
Lockup. So I know this committee is aware of that the project generally, more specifically the window replacement. I think in the application it said June start date, but they are mobilizing for starting on Monday, the 13th of July to do the window replacement, which we had treated as a sort of phase one. Phase two was building envelope and roof evaluation and improvements. So we intend again to bring forward a funding request, but that will be affected in a couple different ways. First is the window project portion is $85,000, and the appropriation is upwards of a couple $100,000. So there may be money available in what has been previously appropriated for this work. So it could be, depending on what the budget is, there may be money there that will be turned back to CPC after this project is complete. and having at least one vendor out there, they think there might be more of an opportunity to do repairs rather than a total roof replacement, which I think had been the initial conception. So again, we're in the process of working with the contractor to do the window project, which has been delayed, and we appreciate the committee's patience on that one as we finally got that out to bid and contracted. But we intend to submit a funding application for the next phase for the fall. Scope is a little bit kind of still wishy-washy just in terms of what is actually needed down there. But we'll be sure to have that teed up by the fall.
The initial project was both the windows and masonry repair. And the masonry repair wasn't done, so do you intend to go ahead with a separate masonry repair project with the initial funding that you were given?
Yeah, we pulled, so we had a bid set that had both in there, and in talking to contractors that really felt that it would be two different kinds of people that we'd want to have do the work. So we separated the work. Our intention was to have all of it done by the fall. I think our goal is to have the masonry under contract and have a better sense of the roof. But again, we don't, that's still something kind of we're working through. So the delays on the windows is still trickling to further impacts on completion of all of phase one. Our hopes are to be in a better position by the fall to request the next aspect of it. But from an eligibility perspective.
And that's good.
Sure.
You're intending to do a separate masonry project to finish up phase one?
Correct.
Okay.
Does the roof leak?
The leaks that we've had received complaints about are really around, there's a skylight in there. So it's been, the complaints that I've been made aware of been more or less limited to in that vicinity, which we're hopeful that means maybe a total replacement isn't necessary, but again, that's something we're still trying to map out.
Because the study of the roof was part of the first money. It was do the windows, do the masonry, and study the roof to find out what is needed. Can the slate be reused or not, or can some of it be reused? Possibly you could, if you couldn't reuse all of it, maybe only new on the front half and the used on the back half. That was, the money for that was built into the $220,000. So what you're discussing is the money to actually do a roof, depending,
Yeah.
whatever it is that is determined to be needed.
Well, if that's the case, then he could use some of the phase one money that's not needed for the masonry, if there's anything left over, to get an evaluation,
To get an evaluation,
Evaluation of
that
the
was
roof.
built in, the evaluation of the roof was built into the first 220. So
So that's within the scope of the.
this is the money to actually do the roof.
And we hope to be in a position to have kind of a more specific ask with a budget and a defined scope by September. It is possible that we are in that position, but we obviously wanted to keep the project alive and try to keep it moving forward. But at the very least, the window replacement should be complete by the end of July, and then we're hopeful to keep the rest of the project kind of moving on those tracks, and then be prepared to really make an ask to the committee. But we're optimistic.
Because to get numbers by the end of September, you need to do the study of the roof
now.
now. In
Yes.
order to.
Yeah, no, agreed.
Yeah. I mean, because that, again, that,
So it's both a timing issue and a budget issue.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
it seems like 280 would be the upper limit of what we're talking about, if you have potential reserves from the first year.
And those yes, with the fund
Maybe.
that those numbers are,
Yeah.
ideally, yes, but those numbers are older.
Yeah,
and,
yeah, yeah.
But maybe there's savings if the scope is reduced, but
Right,
they are just a little bit older numbers.
has it been an RFP on
It's a
Mason?
big TBD.
No, we're trying to, I don't know where it sits with consolidated, I'll check in, but,
I have an
think
8
they-
o'clock, I have an 8 o'clock with Tom in the
I knew
morning,
you were
the
going. that way,
contract.
yeah. So,
I'm not sure, I'll be there.
All right, so let's move on to your choice, Atherton Street Fire Station or Tucker.
Sure, no, thank you. On Atherton, Chair Brian Walsh of the Fire Station Building Committee couldn't be here tonight. And we don't have a lot to present at this time. The architect and the OPM the owner's project manager on the project, are in design as we speak. For the committee's knowledge, the town meeting did vote at the May town meeting to appropriate $1 million to bring the design to a level where it could go out to bid. That design contemplates an addition and renovation of the existing structure. Renovation of what you see, addition in terms of at least one additional bay built onto the structure, up to 2 more bays in total when the project is said and done. What those 2 additional bays, where they will be, whether they'll be attached or detached from the building, kind of to be determined. For this committee's kind of scope, I would view those 2 additional bays most likely as going to be total new construction. The rest of the project really is about renovating and rehabilitating the existing structure, from masonry improvements, building envelope improvements, to interior renovations of the existing bays and the living quarters. And in addition of, if you're looking at the structure, the original kind of concept design included an additional bay to the right of the 2 bays with an expansion over it to expand the crew quarters up above. So we will be in a better position to describe that project in greater detail later in the summer as the design team continues. They are marching towards a goal of having materials ready for warrant committee review in August and September, ahead of a fall town meeting, which we anticipate to be in October. It's a compact schedule. Things will have to move quickly. So really, I would be interested to know what this committee would be looking for to evaluate whether to fund it, how much to fund it, what the committee can and can't fund, what your perspective is on that, so that we can start to pull that information together to be in a place, and then really what your timetable would be. I know there's talk about trying to meet again in a couple of weeks. I will tell you, you're looking for feedback from the designer and the project team. That won't be ready by then. The warrant will need to go to print for a mid-October town meeting by like mid-September. So we'd be looking for final warrant articles, completely done and complete by really early August. So this warrant committee can get to work. It's a tough timetable. So really it will be helpful for us at this point is understanding what the committee is interested in learning more about specifically, and how you see CPC funding being possibly used on this project or not.
So can you just, before we get into that,
Sure.
just lay out the timeline again a little bit? So early August, warrant article. Goes to printer, the warrant would go to the printer in mid-September or mid-October town meeting.
Yes, so
And a November vote.
I'll work backwards. Yes,
Okay.
so
Yeah, we're back.
ballot question, because the Atherton Street project will require a ballot question at a debt exclusion. So that will either be on the state election ballot or require a special election in mid-November or early December. So in that approximate time frame, so like early November to mid-December is a possibility for the ballot question. Town meeting to take place before that. Town meeting is supposed to fall on the 4th Monday in October. That clashes against early voting and everything else the town clerk's office is doing. So likely that will land a week earlier, October 19th potentially. So October 19th, special town meeting. Warrant needs to be printed with warrant committee recommendations and comments by at the end of the 2nd week in September. So now it's a question of how much runway and time does the warrant committee have to consider articles. So that's where we say ideally today. If we had to, we can let that lag a little bit. They're well aware that an Atherton Street project article is coming. So getting that specificity by early August, mid-August is what we're shooting for. And for this committee meeting, kind of a similar timeframe, because that article will have to say, how much money do we need from the voters and town meeting to appropriate? How much money is CPC interested in and willing and recommending to commit to the project as well, so that they can go to the town meeting at the same time.
You want to say a little bit more about, obviously, as you know, typically our process has been to bring articles, CPA articles in front of the Springtown meeting. This will be the first time. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but this will be the first time we were bringing it to a special town meeting in the fall. Just talk, for people listening and whatever, just talk us through why that would need to happen. And, those funds would have to be committed, before a vote.
So one of the issues that with waiting for CPC money would be that the town would still need to have voted the full appropriation for the fire station project so that we can put it out to bid. We can sign a contractor that can start work in the spring of 2028. So if we waited until May, the project would have already been fully designed, fully bid out, we would have had a contract in place. And so we would have had to fund the whole amount of the project with general fund money, tax
Right.
dollars.
Because
Alternatively,
That's the plan.
so the concept of putting the articles together so that they're approved at the same town meeting and there isn't a risk of the money being perceived as supplanting other monies which CPC funds can't do. So the idea was to get to a total project budget amount from both the tax levy and the residents and from CPC. So the total project budget is appropriated, say it's $16 million. X $1 million from CPC or X $100,000 from CPC, and the balance to come from the tax levy, subject to voter approval, of course.
Yeah.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So are we looking to do this appropriation out of money for this fiscal year, 2027? Or are we looking to appropriate from 2028?
It would be debt, so it wouldn't have an impact.
Well,
in
we have to
27.
factor in the debt service.
The debt service wouldn't hit until
So-
fiscal 28 at the earliest.
Oh, okay,
When the money is drawn, yeah.
yeah,
So
so
that-
I just wanted to see,
It could affect your other project appropriations because it would have to factor into the amount of money you have for all of your fiscal
Right.
28.
Yeah.
And we can get that. That figure will also depend on what the amount
Yeah.
of money.
no, but I just, from my own thinking, I just wanted to make sure that I had factored in where it was coming from. Whether, because when I represented Plymouth, it was not unusual at all for us to do October town meetings.
Yeah.
That would have CPA articles that were
Right,
for the current fiscal year,
okay.
so
Okay.
fiscal
Yeah,
2027. And so I just,
So in this,
See
case,
which
we made
one.
all the recommendations for that fiscal year.
right, yeah, so I just was asked
Yeah.
to see.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, it's a good question, okay, so you had asked us what we would need, and I think that I'm gonna let other folks speak to this better than me, but I think, obviously, we can only fund the historic preservation portions of the project. Which are generally, I think, defined as the exterior of the building. So that's, I think, the breakdown we're gonna need to see, but Steve and Pete and Jenny and Kathleen and
I think we need an identification of what elements of the construction are considered to be eligible or you're applying for to be used, CPA funds to use for. And I don't think it's exterior building. I think it's roof, siding, windows, chimney, whatever. So I think we need a breakdown and what those individual items will cost. I think, that's a start. I do think we would need a projection of what the debt service would be on whatever amount we do. If it's a $3 million thing, I think before we vote it, we'll want to know, what we're gonna be on an annual basis funding to pay that debt service.
Jenny.
The 16 million, where did that figure come from? For starters,
It's an early cost estimate, based on the owner's project manager kind of taking a square footage cost and quantity and just doing rough math on that. So it's a very high level cost estimate without specific information related to Atherton per se. It does include, it includes a placeholder for the additional bays that we talked about, the 2 additional bays over the 3 that had been planned. It includes, I think, upwards of, if I remember right, I think it's like $1.5 million just for temporary quarters for moving the fire department out of there to a temporary location for the duration of construction to move back in. So the cost estimate is high level, but it's driven from their experience on similar projects. What will happen before town meeting is there'll be a cost estimate of the design documents at whatever stage they're at. So we'll have a more refined cost estimate based on this specific project with the design that the architects have worked on. So that's a high level, hopefully the high watermark. They did this right. And we expect that number to hopefully come down. And that's a total project budget. It includes the soft costs such as the architectural fees, the project management fees, and any other soft costs that are included.
So, I'm a little confused about the bays. So in here it says up to 3 additional bays, but you said 2 additional bays. There's two bays now.
Correct, yeah, sorry, yeah, there's 2 additional bays now. The design always included adding on a 3rd full-size bay to the front of the
So
building.
total of 3.
For a total of 3 at least, and now the building committee over the past year has recommended that 2 more for a total of 5 be constructed.
So does that mean there's 5 trucks that have to be funded?
That's more than the headquarters.
That's right, yeah.
That's more than the headquarters size, right?
Yeah, the challenge of the existing bays is that they don't barely fit the current.
The bays
They're
is
not gonna
small.
be used for trucks.
So they
Yeah,
don't,
bases.
so, and they're over.
You don't,
There's an open
No, I
floor
know.
below, so. There is a logistical challenge with the size of apparatus these days fitting into those bays, so a new station with 2 full-size bays. May have accomplished some of the same goals as this does, because it's just trying to get some more full-size bays is really the goal. There's plenty of equipment to be stored that we now kind of fit where possible. And it also would allow the department to retain apparatus after what we would typically move on from them to serve as reserve apparatus when the other engines are out of service or broken down. And we've gone periods without a ladder in town because we don't have a backup ladder. So it's trying to solve some of those problems. Again, what exactly that looks like, whether they're a part of the building or a standalone kind of separate building, is still what they're working on through the design phase.
So does it also mean a bigger staff as well?
No, the active use of the station would remain as a single engine station.
So the rest is just storage space.
Storage space for additional equipment that for both reserve equipment and future and additional equipment that they maintain currently.
There are also some talk about, like equipment from potentially the state for, the Blue Hill. For
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It's also trying to think about
wildfires.
where should the department be, 10, 15, 20 years from now. What we don't have is a large off-road brush tanker. We have a brush truck that has a few hundred gallons on it. So the idea of having the ability and the space, if the town were to acquire a tanker to be used for future brush fires, like that's another ability to increase the overall storage space at Atherton.
So can I keep going?
Yes, please, yeah.
So, what happens if the voters turn this down?
The project would not be funded, so the project would need to be reconsidered, brought back to the voters, brought back to town meeting after changes or not. It would just mean the project's not approved and it doesn't go forward until it gets approved.
So there's not a plan B right now in place?
No, not at this point in terms of, no, I wouldn't say so. Yeah.
Plan B ought to be incorporated by the fire station building committee into the present plan.
Well, people don't usually do that,
Well, no, I
in
realize
my history
that.
of municipal
But if
projects.
you go out with
Yeah.
this station with 5 bays. And the voters turn it down. Then you have to back up
Start over
and do
again.
it all over again, as opposed to. Presenting something that is going to appeal to the voters the first time, and that's not your job, it's not our job, it's just an editorial comment.
I would say generally,
Mhm.
a backup plan is something less expensive, something smaller, so I would say that.
Could you
if the voters
segregate-
were to say-
Could you segregate the rehab and the 1 new bay, because you said it's gonna operate as a 1 bay station. And have a separate building for 2 new bays as a future project or something.
It's a possibility, it's a possibility for sure, in terms of whether, I don't know what the design will come back to say. But I would say that all of that has been discussed in terms of a single a single building that has all of this, or two separate buildings, and the separate building is really just
Storage.
storage. That requires much less in terms of mechanicals and everything.
Just wanted to jump in where Jenny said, what, one of the things I thought you were where you were going with that is what happens to our vote? So, and maybe that's where you were going.
That's a good question, yeah.
But
Our votes
so,
stand,
so our vote would stand even though the project's not going forward.
right,
How do we get that money?
we have to go back to town meeting and rescind the vote. It's a typical process, happens with many
Yeah, no,
CPC
right.
committees.
I mean, you have said that before, that you
Yeah,
have to
you
go
just go back to town meeting, it's,
to
it's,
recover.
it's dedicated funds to that purpose. And it stays there until we go back to town meeting and vote to.
And the town couldn't issue debt for that purpose because there wouldn't be enough money to do anything
Right.
with the airport. So it would sit as a outstanding debt authorization. That's on our books, and we will bring back periodically, there will be articles on the warrant.
Yeah.
Say to
Right, yeah.
rescind.
Yeah.
So you get an authorization, so that'd be added to the list of something that would be
Yeah.
rescinded.
Well, obviously, there's a number of ifs
Sure.
with this one, so that's what makes it difficult, I think, for this committee to move forward on it, because there's so many unknowns to it, and the timing of it is a little funky.
Sure. It's just fast, for sure.
It's very difficult for us.
Yeah,
This is just some kind of stuck in my craw. 2 years ago, when we said that we couldn't fund the headquarters building because it was already funded and we couldn't replace. It was discussed that there's no doubt that the committee would be coming back to us for Atherton Street. So what was happening over 2 years that the building committee couldn't come to us and talk about what they're thinking about and what the costs are, so that this didn't jump on us, with a week to take action. I mean, it just seems that they should have been talking to us about, we intend in your next round to come forward with a project to fund the historic restoration elements. Here's what they are, what are your questions? To do it and expect us to make this kind of decision without any information, within weeks or a month, I just think is totally unfair. I mean, we have a responsibility, to best use the CPA funds and the process and the precedent being set by if we are willing to move like this on one project, particularly a project, the largest one that we've ever done, to move it like that, then does that mean, that's gonna be the way we operate in the future? I think these are things that we really have to consider.
Well, I mean, we've always known that the Atherton Street Fire Station was gonna need CPA money. We've always had.
Correct.
And so, obviously, there's no question about the eligibility of it, which is what this meeting is tonight, to decide whether these projects are eligible. I don't think there's any issue with that. And so really, the only question we have is how much of the project would qualify under the standards for the Secretary of the Interior as rehabilitation and restoration.
Right.
And so we've always known it's a big number, so it's not really a surprise. And so when we think about the Atherton Street Fire Station, and the Secretary of the Interior we have broader authority under under the recommend, if there's a rehabilitation that is got new construction as part of it and the restoration and all that sort of thing, those are all fundable under the rehabilitation standards for the Secretary of the Interior. You just have to make sure that whatever you're doing as new construction is sort of sympathetic to the existing and all that sort of stuff. So it's not a hard line on it. And so it's like, we can just fix the masonry, but we can't do the windows. That's not true. We can do the windows and we can do the masonry and we can do the roof and we can do the siding and all kinds of things that are part of the building. So I think the only question before us to go back to Nick for that committee is to just sort of say, when you go to the architect and you go to the designers and you say, okay, fine, how much of this $60 million is 16 million? I knew it was 6. The $16 million, how much of that is, you know, something that could be reasonably covered as a historic preservation of the existing fire station? Is it 20%? Is it 10%? You know, that sort of thing, and then come up with sort of a reasonable number based upon the revenue that the CPA has. I mean, you could say that it's 25%, but we don't have that kind of cash to pay for that. And so that's a decision that Nick and his team have to sort of say, okay, fine, what's available as a pot from our committee? Reasonably available from our committee as a pot, and how much of that can be used for restoration of that building. And I don't think we're paying anywhere near close to what the costs are gonna be coming out of this
Their-
committee. If they
their
said,
restoration.
yeah. But they're gonna be a lot higher than what we are going to be able to fund. And
So, yeah.
we're participating in this because we told people when we were trying to get this passed, that it was gonna be something that was gonna be used for the fire stations. So I think we have an obligation, because we told people we were gonna do that, and that's why we needed to pass the CPA, is that funds would be available. But there's no way that we have enough money to pay for all of that restoration cost on that building.
So we need to know, I mean, what are the restoration elements and what are their costs? That's
We-
the first thing.
We
Yeah.
need to drill in, it's, you know,
Yeah.
estimated at 3 million, but we need to know what's behind that 3 million. And, you know.
How much is the East Milton Station costing? What's the
It
cost of that?
is the total project budget. It's a lot of this design for all three of the stations were done at the beginning.
Right.
So it's hard to say, to pull back and say, okay, there was $500,000 in design work already done, but from like.
But there's-
Design development to final bid docs to construction was an $11 million project. For a 2 base station, new construction we build on a, you know, a clean site.
Clean line.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we need to move on because we have a long night here. I think you're right to remind us, our job right now is just to determine eligibility. We'll formally
Mhm.
discuss and vote on that at our next meeting, but I think there's no question that this project is eligible.
Right.
I think, Nick, you've heard, you know, some of the challenges you have as a committee and the timeline, but we know the committee and you will do your best to get us information as soon as possible.
And we have a coordination discussion scheduled for tomorrow, where, you know, hard dates are gonna try to put on a calendar. Is there, obviously, we'll strive to get you as much information ahead of the 20th. Is there a subsequent meeting date already on the books for us?
There is, we scheduled them out for the full year.
Okay.
So I can get you, I don't have it.
I have that list actually, now that you say that, I think.
Yeah, you probably do,
Okay.
or Linda,
Alright.
yeah. So we can,
Okay.
we can look at it. All right, so Tucker.
Yes, so I will let them speak to the merits of the project on Tecker.
Well, they already have.
They've done that.
We-
Okay.
We've done that, check that box.
All right. So timing, again, this is where it gets a little tricky to do these projects that need to take place over the course of the summer after school is closed. For us, from a bidding, yeah.
Before you start, can I just ask you a question? If by chance your goal of getting on the state ballot for the fire station slipped to a later November, early December vote, would that also mean no, Tucker doesn't have to go to the ballot, so, okay, yeah, okay, sorry.
No problem.
Sorry. So there might be more money in the ballot.
I don't My priest doesn't even know where Tucker
I
is,
would-
so,
I withdraw that line of questioning.
Don't you live across the street?
yeah.
For any of these projects that we try to do and thinking about of a summer project, really for our purposes, as most of you are aware, is going out to bid and signing contracts so that a contractor is ready to show up and actually start when the field or the place is available for them to start. In the case of a playground project, that includes procurement of playground equipment, bidding for installation, for demolition, and having all of those contracts signed so that when we can give them a notice to proceed, that is worked out well in advance. So in a case like this, for a school playground project, really any school playground project or A field project, if we want that to happen in the spring, summer construction season, we need to be able to go out to bid and sign contracts several months in advance of that date. So the purpose that there would be a request to bring forward from a May town meeting would be to enable for a project to have its full funding available, so that it can then proceed to put projects out to bid, to sign contracts, to coordinate that work, to commence, right when that space is available for them to commence. So if we're talking specifically, again, that includes trying to have all of the project appropriation tied up sooner, so that those contracts and bids can be done and work can commence over the course of the summer. So that's kind of the broad rationale why any request might come forward, just to tee up. We won't sign a contract until all the project money is in place. We could put projects out to bid with a funding, contingent upon funding. It's just never appetizing for a vendor to know that they might have to sit around and wait for a town meeting vote, or to wait for a ballot question vote. So ideally, you're taking those steps once all the project funding is secured. So that is the general rationale for bringing some of that funding request forward. Not that the construction will start necessarily before the annual town meeting, but really it's about having the contracts in place.
So I think what you're getting at, and maybe some of the committees should be thinking of, we might be better served with these projects, as it's happened, every project that needed construction that should start in April or May, is if we got in the, redid our schedule, so we tried to be ready for a fall special town meeting with our funding, recommendations, rather than waiting for, and that way, all the projects could be ready to start work in the spring when the weather's suitable. So maybe that's something we think about, kind of reorienting our schedule.
Yeah, or I think that's a reasonable suggestion for the future, and also, I think I
But that's not tonight.
It's not, no,
That's a
and
future project discussion.
right. The other thing I thought of, and we have discussed as a committee over the years, is the idea of 2 rounds. Just being more adaptable to project needs, basically,
Yeah.
and having the ability, or reserving the ability to bring them to a fall or spring town meeting, which I assume some communities do. I mean,
A lot of them do, yeah.
So, all right, questions about?
But mostly that's driven,
timeline?
not so much by these kinds of projects, those are mostly driven by the fact that we've got purchase and sale agreements, we're buying stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's where it needs to be in the same fiscal year, because otherwise people don't want to wait that long. Not for the usual ones that we haven't had anything like that.
Just from my role as
Yeah.
fiscal person. I went and looked at our budget upcoming and what we're gonna have available. This would be a open space and recreation. And our reserve for open space and recreation next year would be 118,000, except that $60,000 is gonna be taken out of there for the wharf project. That's, our first year bonding costs, and so approximately 60,000, which gives us $51,000 basically for recreation projects. Now,
For the minimum 10%.
for the 10%. In the past, we've tried to have the undesignated reserves, try to split them relatively equal, not exactly, but relatively equal. So if we did that, from the undesignated reserves, we'd have 260,000, which would give us a total of 311,850 for recreation projects this year,
For all of them.
for all the applicants. This is a $300,000 request, which really means this would be the only project that we could likely fund this year. The other thing I think we need to discuss or look into, the 60,000 bonding cost, does that have to come out of the 10% reserve, or can it come out of the entire budget? In which case it wouldn't be such a big hit on recreation.
I thought we discussed it and it did. Had to come out
I
of
think,
what was allocated for open space and
The
recreation.
10% for open space.
No, I don't think so.
Well, it can come out of the 70% that's flexible
Yeah.
too.
You
Well,
just
that's-
have to set aside 10%.
It doesn't have to come from that.
It doesn't have to come from that.
So if we don't do that, then only point
Yeah,
basically.
your overall point though is
Yeah.
valid, when we're in a,
Mhm.
you know, as
There-
we
yeah.
said, we have $6 million in the press. Obviously,
$1 million
three of that's for bonding, so $3 million in the press in total, with only 1.1 million approximately to award. So
Mhm.
that's our challenge, on all these projects, including the Tucker project, of course.
But the difficulty is trying to make a decision ahead of time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, that is a challenge. So I guess building off of that, I'm not saying, I'm saying this out loud, but I'm not saying this out loud because this will come to fruition, but and Marika is here, maybe you wanna speak to this with Nick, but I know you have ambitious fundraising goals. You've made a lot of progress, which has been wildly impressive to me anyways, who has been a nonprofit fundraiser for most of my career. And you're continuing to make that progress and a lot of good projects. What would happen to this project if you were awarded something from CPC in the fall? Let's just speculate for a moment, but it was less than the 300,000. You know, I'm not gonna put a number on it because I don't wanna, but is that the death knell of the project at this stage, or are you optimistic that enough balls are in the air that you could fill a potential gap that if we can't
I
possibly?
think the biggest problem is that we're coming up to a deadline, as Nick said, if
Yeah.
we want to have this all done
Yeah.
in the summer, next summer, and.
Marika, why don't you
Yeah,
come up
okay.
for this purpose, so
Yeah.
that the microphone can
Yes.
capture what you're saying?
I think that the biggest problem is just we have a deadline now of. I think is probably
Mhm.
January-ish
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
have all our funds in line.
Mhm.
And so. I think it becomes harder and harder to manage that we're waiting on, Ayanna Presley's grant and. Have reached out to, that list of other places that we've
Yeah.
reached out to.
Yeah.
And. I mean, we'll keep going until our kids
Right.
are. My daughter on the last day
You're
of
not
school
gonna-
had
you're
a
not
big
gonna stop.
injury
You're
and
not
is
gonna
still recovering from it, so I'm not willing to not just stop, but, it certainly would help us. Get the project
Mhm.
to where we need it to
Do
be.
you have any other updates, funding updates since we last talked?
We don't know. Hopefully.
Good.
You should probably connect, as I believe the CPC is undesignated reserve. Cause if I'm remembering right, I feel like you brought in more money than budgeted in past years. And you haven't necessarily appropriated all of it, so there may be more in your undesignated reserve.
I think accounting included that in this
Okay,
article, and it wasn't that much this year that we were under.
okay,
And the other thing that we didn't spend the whole historic preservation reserve, but have to add it to the historic preservation reserve,
Right.
not to the undesignated. So I did, I reached out, Nick, I copied you reaching out to try to get, I've been trying with accounting to get updated budget figures, but this is year end and they're just totally swamped and we're hoping that maybe by the 20th, we might have some numbers, but
yeah, no,
It's
I'll
very
take some of
difficult.
that. I could be misremembering, I thought you might
No, I
have
think
said more things.
It
We're
worth
left
getting
a
those
little.
updated numbers, because,
Yeah.
my new role as a member of the Board of Assessors,
There
I
you go.
just signed, I think they call it a warrant or whatever, but, in the CPA, revenue
Is in
spoken
there.
out for the first 6 months, and what was coming to the town is in excess of 500,000, just in local funds, which I thought was good, so that means over $1 million, double that.
Yeah.
Over $1 million, and then whatever the state match is. So it's possible we'll get 1.2 this year, or, and we should see.
Yeah.
Reserves from.
10,000 here, 10,000 there, pretty soon we got some money.
It's not gonna solve our
Biggest problem,
but
but
it's,
this is great.
every little advance on on CPA revenue picture.
Yeah.
Is gonna help, obviously.
Okay, so we'll get that, I'll shoot that
Best
for
you
next
can.
week. We will get it to you before the 20th. I will make that.
Lisa doesn't wanna answer my email anymore. I mean, I'm a big fan of this project and, you know, I think we all are, and, we wanna see it move forward.
Okay. Maria, next,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we did that reasonably, we're late, we're running late, but
That's pretty good,
Yeah,
right?
we're pretty good, pretty good. All right, let's, Joe Mondugno is online, I believe, and he is here to talk about the Blue Hill Parkway Historic Marker application. Joe.
Switch over to attendees so you can see who's
I
on.
might have to unmute you.
Unmute.
There you go, we can hear you, Joe.
Okay, so you can hear me. That's great. I was really nervous because I'm not used to using Zoom. Anyway,
Oh, well, thank you for attending, thank you.
yeah. Thanks for considering my proposal and allowing me to present here. So briefly, I think it's pretty straightforward and kind of
Yeah.
easy in a way, but my inspiration for this, to give a little context quickly, is I've been following the work of Mara Holland and Andres Ripley, who are working on a collaboration between the Metropolitan Area Planning Council and the Neponset River Watershed Association. They're creating the Boston to Blue Hills project, which I'm sure you've heard of by now. It's creating a walking, biking, and rolling connection from the Neponset River Greenway to the Blue Hills Reservation. And the Blue Hills Parkway is a key piece of this vision that they have. Some of you might have attended actually the meeting they held on January 17th, which was well attended neighborhood meeting, where they offered a lot of visuals and proposals to reconfigure the Parkway bike lane, the Central Island, the northbound travel lanes to slow traffic, and make the parkway more friendly for walkers, bikers, and recreational activities. There is a detailed and nicely illustrated PDF flyer, by the way, from that meeting online. It can be downloaded. It's called Blue Hills Parkway Meeting Overview. And I have links. I can maybe send them to you. I can't post them, I guess, right? And there's a Boston to Blue Hills website too, which is excellent and also provides information on this proposed project. So it's kind of exciting what they want to do, and I've seen all the proposals, and most people are in agreement on, I think it's proposal number 4. Anyway, today I got an email from Mara, and I've got some good news regarding this. MAPC and NEPRA are in the process of finishing a study on Blue Hills Parkway to enhance mobility along the corridor. I'm kind of quoting right from her email. After extensive public input over 4 years, the team has developed a strongly supported design for the parkway. The final report should be publicly available later this summer, at which time the team will work with DCR to determine next steps for moving into a more detailed design phase. The state just approved $200 million for DCR parkways in the most recent Chapter 90 bill, which we anticipate will be a great opportunity to move forward with this project. So Andres and Mara both encouraged me to submit this application. I had discussed it with them up front because they really like the idea of having some historical signage on the parkway. I think most of us realize that the parkway is on the Register of Historic Places. I think it's since 2003. And there's a write-up on Wikipedia that you can check out if you've never seen it. I think Tom Palmer wrote that actually. And it's interesting, you know, but there's also a substantial and very interesting report available in the Milton Library. I think it's in the Historical Society collections that was created and submitted in support of that application for the Register of Historic Places. And it's pretty rich with local history. And I've drawn upon that a little bit for this presentation. And it's just full of material that could be used in a marker, on a marker, or whatever. So the main reason for this, the historical status of the parkway rests, of course, in the fact that it was one of the first connecting parkways designed by famed landscape architect Charles Elliott and the Olmsted brothers. The land was acquired in 1896 and construction took place in 1898. Elliott was an Olmsted apprentice and later associate. For this reason, the parkway can be viewed in a way as a disconnected piece of Boston's famed emerald necklace, which Elliott worked on. Charles Elliott significantly shaped Boston's landscape by pioneering the nation's first regional park network, moving beyond municipal city parks to preserve entire natural systems. Preserving or restoring and even replicating natural landscapes in an era of expanding urbanization in Boston, late 1800s, was a major ethos of the Olmsted landscape firm, and one that we're the lucky inheritors of today. Nationally, Frederick Law Olmsted is revered and well known, but the younger Charles Elliott was a gifted visionary himself and not as well known. When he became a full partner in the Olmsted firm in 1893, the firm was renamed Olmsted and Elliott, which most people don't realize. It was Elliott who conceptualized transforming the tidal mudflats of Back Bay and the Charles River into a scenic and controlled river basin. So he laid the framework for the Charles River Esplanade. It was Elliott, along with other conservation-minded reformers of the 1880s, who envisioned the large forested hills south of the city as a protected natural area set aside for Boston citizens for their recreation and relief from the growing urban sprawl of the period. This preservation of that natural setting is, of course, the Blue Hills reservations. So I'd like to see Charles Elliott get his due as visionary and landscape architect, and perceive the proposed historical markers would mainly acknowledge his contributions and his vision to the parkway in Milton. But it's also worth mentioning that before the parkway, the specific route the parkway would later follow was simply known as Mattapan Road, and the northern stretch was already Blue Hill Avenue, both rural roads running through sparsely populated farmland and countryside. And along these roadways, the corridor of land south of Boston was also homeland to the Massachusetts people, of course. Now, there are no confirmed ancient native sites directly documented on the parkway's narrow footprint, but there are 16 native sites within a mile of the parkway corridor. And it was the wetlands primarily, the Neponset River, Pine Tree Brook, Pope's Pond, and that kind of thing that made this favorable for Native American settlement and use long before Europeans arrived. Mattapan was the site of a native village in pre-colonial times. And there is an existing native quarry site that few people know about, which is now protected by the city of Boston, literally a stone's throw from Mattapan Square. So I think there's a good reason, and there's plenty of interesting local history to include on maybe 3 markers, as I put in my proposal. And I think the timing couldn't be better with the Blue Hills project, which looks like it's going to happen. So that's kind of my thinking behind this. I don't know if you have questions.
Thank you for bringing it forward, Joe. It's timely, like you said. I think the other investment in the parkway is also makes it timely. And there's no question of the historical significance of this. I think the only question you were listening in our earlier conversation is I think we as a committee need to do a little research on the idea of, can CPA fund new historical markers, essentially? And that's an interesting question. That's really homework that we have to do. I would wonder, since you're working with Mara Holland and
Andres.
Andres Ripley, is whether you could ask them if they are aware, MAPC or Neponset River Watershed Association, whether there's any awareness of other CPA communities that might have funded similar types of projects. Obviously, they suggested CPA funds, so maybe they have some knowledge about similar projects that other communities might have.
Sure, I'll talk to them. That's a reasonable request. I think you're right. Yeah.
And we'll do our homework as well, but and investigate this, but other questions for Joe? Yeah.
I've got two, Joe. One, I was wondering, what do you think the recipient would be? Who would the recipient be?
Who's gonna design and install the signs?
No, or who would be receive the money?
Well, that is a question we would have to discuss. I mean, I don't know the procedure on these markers in general in the town. I thought maybe the Historical Society would be in on this. I figured, Mara and Andres would have some input. I guess we'd have to figure that out, right?
It's a little complicated because, right, it's DCR land.
Right.
And not, like normally I'd say DPW would install the signs, but we're talking about the DCR parkway that they control. So
do you think there'd be a problem with them? Do you think they would allow us to do that if we had the funds available, or, I mean?
I don't think there's a guarantee on that. I think you'd have to talk.
Right, you would have to be talking to them. We just funded a project last round that is bike signage.
Right, that was my second question.
That included DCR. Right.
It was the Randolph Greenway group.
Right.
And then a fellow named Jesse Gordon. I don't know if you've talked to him at all.
No, I haven't.
He worked extensively with the DCR, both for sites in Randolph and now sites in Milton, to get their approval for like wayfaring signage, basically. So,
I mean, it would seem like a reasonable collaboration, and it's pretty small project. If we went forward with that, maybe it wouldn't be too big of a deal. I mean, I'll be glad to talk to anybody, but I'll talk to Mara and Andres tomorrow, and then see what we can put our heads together and see what we can come up with. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'd recommend you talk to Jesse Gordon as well.
Okay, all right, I will.
Joe, I can send you Jesse's contact information.
Thank you. Please do. Yeah.
I think we're giving a grant to him, and in theory, he's.
Well, it's the Randolph Greenway group.
Yeah.
Right. And then they will oversee the design and construction, I guess.
All right, in the interest of our agenda.
I just want to make one comment.
Yeah.
Charles Elliott was a resident of Brush Hill Road in Milton.
He knows that, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say that, but I wasn't 100% sure. When was he married when he was living there or something early on?
Yes, he and his family lived there. I think it was just for a few years. He died very young. He was only 37 when he died.
Right.
And
yeah.
I don't know if he was living at that address at the time or, or if it was earlier, but it was at least a few years. Yeah.
Well, there's another nugget of information for a marker. It brings it closer to home too. Yeah. So that's good. Thanks for verifying that, Pete.
Yeah. All right, Joe, thank you very much for bringing this forward, and we will be in touch.
Sure. Thank you. Okay. Good night. Good luck.
Good night.
All right. The next one on our agenda is Brooksfield LED lighting. Let's see, Tom McCarthy. So why don't we move on to the Forbes house? I think I saw.
Heidi.
Yeah. Okay.
Lori, both are.
Yeah. All right, Lori and Heidi, you should be unmuted at this point. And feel free to.
Yes, hello everyone.
Hello there.
Also unmute Lori Conlon, Assistant Director at the museum.
Great, hi Lori.
Was she unmuted
She was.
or allowed to talk? Okay.
Try that again.
So we prepared a slide presentation. Is there a way to share that with you?
Yeah, I can actually, what I can do, Heidi, is will you be running the slide or Lori?
Lori.
Yep.
All right, I'm gonna promote Lori to panelist. And she should get a prompt on her screen. Once she's a panelist, I can.
Share bunch.
You should be, she should be able to, yes, or. She figured it out quicker than I could say it. All right, so she should be able to run the slideshow.
Wonderful. So we are requesting funding for 2 outbuildings on the Forbes House property that in relation to the barn and carriage house, which was fortunate to receive funding from the Community Preservation Funds of Milton, they create a courtyard space. So the 2 buildings are the shed and the plank house. And we've done some background historical work to learn a little bit more about their significance. So I will pass it on to Lori to talk about that. Lori?
Lori, I think you can
Okay.
unmute.
Now you're able to hear me now? Yes. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
apparently
yeah.
I shared and did not unmute myself when I was allowed back in. Okay. Thank you all very much. So as you can see from the slide, in 2019, so about 7 years ago, we did do a conservation assessment by an independent conservation consultant. And her conclusion on the 2 buildings is that there is definite significant architectural elements to both of those. The 2 buildings obviously served as outbuildings when the Forbes House property was a residential estate. The term shed for the 1 building on the left obviously denotes its probable usage for the Forbes as a place for storage of tools and other small implements. The plank house terminology likely didn't really have anything referring to its usage, but was more in reference to the upright verticality of the boards flanking the exterior of the building. The usage was likely for carriages or early vehicles. Mary Bowditch Forbes, who was the very last Forbes member to live on the property, did use these terminologies in her will. So it's very likely that the Forbes family themselves called it both the shed and the plank house. They were likely constructed in the late 19th century. And while we don't have information on necessarily an architect, so it's likely that they were designed by a local builder, they are definitely significant, as Heidi mentioned, in their relational aspect to the Isaiah Rogers designed carriage house and the Peabody and Stearns designed barn. The carriage house was designed in 1833 to 1834 in the Greek Revival style, while the 1880s barn extension was designed in shingle style. And then intriguingly, both the plank house and the shed feature some Gothic revival elements. If we go to the next slide here, we can see that both buildings feature what is called label or hood molding, which is an architecturally referential element to medieval England, and again is an aspect of the Gothic revival movement. Additional Gothic references can be seen in the molding around the plank house's large entrance, which alludes to an extended round trefoil arch, which is another element of Gothic revival architecture. So in this small courtyard with these 3 buildings, we have this incredible span of reference to very significant architectural styles. And the three of them together form this historic sort of service plaza right here. And so you're able to see the relation between the three buildings. This is the carriage house and barn. This is the shed, and then this would be the plank house. And again, they're all around this historic service plaza. And any exterior work that we do on the shed and the plank house is going to enhance the CPC funded work that's been being done on the carriage house and the barn. So Heidi, did you want to walk through a little bit about what we are hoping to achieve?
Yes, you can see this is a building in dire need of some attention. There's a tarp on the roof, and the siding is very worn. There are rotten boards. The roof is leaking. So the work that we need to address involves structural framing, replacing those rotten boards, a whole new wood shingle roof to replace the existing shingles, restoring the window sashes, painting, and regrading with a gravel apron that will help it coordinate into the paved area for the eventual courtyard. The cost, $116,394, and this is from plans created by Spencer Preservation Group, the architectural firm that we've been working with for the barn and carriage house. Next slide, the carriage or the plank house. Similarly, it has some rotten wood. It has roof issues, not as severe, but it does need a new wood shingle roof. Window sashes need to be restored, needs to be painted, and again regraded with a gravel apron. The cost is a little bit more. It's a larger building, even though structurally it doesn't need as much work, but that totals $145,230. Once restored, we will be preventing further damage and greater expense to restore them the sooner we act. There will be additional space for the museum to serve the public with space for historic interpretation, and the other building safeguards our collections. We would be doing important work to preserve the historic landmark status of the entire property and to enhance the visitor experience with that new welcoming space. So altogether, what does this cost? $261,625. What we are requesting from CPT would be to fund the restoration and painting of that shed and the painting of the plank house. We would raise the remainder for the restoration of the plank house, the structural work, etc., through grants that we are working on, and possibly Mary Forbes's endowment, which does have funds available to address those buildings, which were an important part of the legacy she left behind in her will to safeguard that these important parts of the property would be cared for in perpetuity. Thank you very much. And yeah, if you have any questions.
Questions?
Is the project on the carriage house finished?
We've run into some delays working with the federal government through Save America's Treasures. Most recently, they requested, well, as you know, the government was shut down for a while, so things were put on hold. And then most recently, they requested shovel testing because there is some ground disturbance in addressing the drainage needs of the carriage house and barn. That was recently completed. The report is going to the Mass Historical Commission. then it goes to Safeguard's treasurers. Then we will proceed with the phase two, but all of the funding from CPC has been expended towards the intended work on those buildings.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I didn't see the tour, I was just kind of curious, but thank you.
Great. Any other questions?
So is there a priority between the shed and the plank? It looks like you're presenting them together as well as the work together, but if you were to consider them as independent projects, would you focus on the plank because of its leaking, or what would be your priority?
The shed is the one that's actively leaking. And really, you know, at one point we were ready to just have Mother Nature have her way with it, but it is protected by a preservation easement on the property, and it is an important part of the heritage of the site. But right now, you can't even walk in that building. It is very, very compromised. So the shed, for restoration purposes, is 100% our priority. Painting both is important for the exterior aesthetics of the courtyard, but the restoration of the plank house, we could hold off a while on. It's not as emergent.
Right.
I think when you present an estimate in your final funding application, maybe if you divided those out in case we were only able to fund one rather than both of them, maybe if you present them as separate costs, just to give us a little more information.
Okay, that's
Absolutely.
great advice.
And so
All
at
right.
this point, we were only intending to ask for funding for the shed restoration and the painting for both, not
Yeah.
knowing what is available and how many other historic preservation projects are out there.
Yeah, we did get a long
Long
list
list
of
this year.
21 applications, many in the historic preservation category. The request right now is about $3 million. And, you know, as we have said, we have approximately 1.1 available this year, 1.1 million to award. So we are gonna have to make some creative and tough decisions as we go forward, but we thank you for your work on this overall project, including the carriage house, and thank you for bringing this project to our attention.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much.
All right,
We would
thanks,
not have been
Heidi.
where we are without CPC funding, that is for sure.
Thanks, Heidi. Thanks, Laurie.
Thank you. All right, Steve Novak, of the Mary C. Lane improvements.
Good evening. I think I know many of you. So I am Steve Novak. I'm president of Milton American Baseball. And we actually have been a fortunate recipient in the past of CPC funds, and I'm glad to say that it's gone very, very well. So we're very, very pleased with that. As our Parks and Recreation Department knows, we're always looking to try to continually improve the spaces that we utilize. I think as a reminder to this group, we serve half the town of Milton, primarily from Randolph Avenue and east. And so that encompasses about 450 or so families on an annual basis, ages typically 4 to 12 years old, of our baseball program. So this particular project is addressing Mary C. Lane. What this would do in particular is we want to actually extend and create the infield to be what we would call a convertible infield or a 50/70 infield. Now what that means, it's an intermediate space and division, which is growing far, far more common, not just in the state of Massachusetts, but around the country. The traditional Little League dimensions are what we would call 46/60. That refers to the base paths as well as the pitcher's mound, the length. So it's 46 feet at the pitcher's mound, 60 feet on the base paths. What we would do is we would have a pitcher's mound that is convertible, that can convert back to 50 feet, as well as base paths that can go out to 70 feet. That would require us to have a company come in and extend the entire apron of the infield further into the existing outfield. We would not be compromising the ability to keep the field as is. You could play both dimensions on the same field. So that is quite common in terms of what that looks like. There's over 100 such fields in Massachusetts.
Hmm.
I think some on the table may be aware that the Parks and Recreation Department is also undergoing a master planning process, and this was actually something that was identified by constituents as a need in the particular town. For our league, to kind of put this in greater context, this particularly impacts our older constituents. Now, older by our standards is our 11 and 12-year-olds. Okay, so most of them, if they're playing outside of town, are playing on these 50, 70 fields. They're doing so in club baseball outside of Milton, and that's a very common thing in terms of what we do. We are a Cal Ripken organization or part of Babe Ruth Baseball. It is a requirement for us when we play in our summer seasons to actually play at that dimension for our A baseball teams. We don't have a choice to do anything other than that.
At the 11 and 12-year-olds?
Yes.
Yeah, not before then, but.
Not before then. So before then, it's still at 40, but we're required. So what we've been doing the last several years is we've been leasing space over at Houghton's Pond from DCR. DCR has been very challenging to work with over at Houghton's Pond. We are doing our best to make it work, but we've had to go out, including when we've actually had space, we have to go out to other communities and other towns to utilize their space to accommodate what we need to do in terms of game schedules. We're also spending quite a bit of money to rent out Houghton's Pond on an annual basis as well. There's not a lot of flexibility there in terms of how we schedule, so we actually probably take more time than we need. The reality is, if we wait until schedules are firm or we don't account for rainouts, they don't give us space.
Oh, right.
And so it's a real challenge to go through that. The other thing about this is there's two other components. One, I think from a player's safety standpoint, it actually improves the mechanics of players in terms of reducing injury risk, because it's an incremental transition to what will eventually be the larger field. So that's what you would see the Red Sox playing on, high school baseball playing on. There's really very few sports or no other sports that I'm aware of where you actually have a potential 30% increase year over year in terms of the dimensions of the field that you play on. This allows for appropriate simulated gameplay in terms of base running, et cetera, as well as extending out gradually what the dimensions are going to look like, and how far you need to throw and what that looks like. So there's a player safety component to this as well as they grow and they mature. The opposite end of that is you'll see this sometimes over the summer if you watch the Little League World Series. Sometimes you get a young man or woman who perhaps has hit puberty before everybody else, and being so close also has its own dangers associated with that as well. So there's a combination effort here. The other piece that we put into the project would be additional fencing. So there is, if you're aware of Mary C. Lane, there is a current asphalt path that comes from the parking lot, which is adjacent to Randolph Avenue, and leads towards the playground area. What we'd be proposing is as we have 11 and 12-year-olds play there more often than
It goes.
it's parallel to left field. Exactly. So what we would be proposing, because the dimensions of this field are a little bit shorter than the traditional 12-year-old field would be, we actually want to create a fence in front of that asphalt path to allow for especially non-baseball participants and fans who are passing through not to be in danger of batted balls, et cetera, and extending that in left field. Part of it is a permanent fence. We would then also incur the cost of a temporary fence to put up during the course of the season, not dissimilar to what you see over at softball at Geo Field in terms of a fence that can come up and down to accommodate gameplay outside of, in this case, baseball during the off seasons. So this is something that, we've obviously talked to Parks Department about, and they're on board with supporting this project as well. And total cost, I know you have it in front of you, is going to be over $70,000 when we kind of take this into account. We're certainly in the position to try to fund a good portion of that with some of our own funding and support from our community and sponsors, and looking for CPC to help us get to that total number and continue to try to make that park available to all of our players, so we don't have to go out of town and or to Houghton's Pond as well. So that's in simple form where we are.
I learned some things. I've always thought that jump from 12-year-old to basically high school fields is
a big challenge.
It's huge.
It's a challenge, and one of the reasons, there's many reasons, but one of the reasons that we enjoy being a part of the Cal Ripken organization is that gradual transition.
Yeah, no, that's great.
that can happen.
Great. Jen,
So I'm trying to visualize, so the infield, the dirt part then becomes wider?
Yes, that's the easiest way to put it. So your current grass of the infield portion, by and large, is gonna stay largely intact. Okay, so that
That's
grass
stretch
part,
into the
the dirt parts that will now, that halo, if you will, that goes around, that will be extended further out.
Got it.
You know,
And so then when you adjust, then you have to redo the white lines all the time?
No, so the white lines, so foul lines are the same regardless of the dimension of the field. It's a 90-degree angle regardless of what happens. So those foul lines never change.
But the second base.
The bases change, but what you do is you have anchors in each of the places that you could put, you basically put a fill in there so they're not dangerous. So that if you're not playing in that particular dimension, it's in the ground. You would never even know it. You just play as normal. And then if you just switch the bases out to the different dimension, that base comes out of where it is. You put a different type of anchor in from a safety standpoint, and that base can now go to the prior place depending on what dimension you're playing in. So you'd actually have two different bases. Similarly, we would be responsible for purchasing what we would call a convertible mound. And what that would mean is you have to essentially have two different, we'd call them pitching rubbers, et cetera, at two different dimensions. There's different ways to do it. The most common way that is, weather resistant is something that actually literally the mound itself can move from one area to the other in a very easy fashion. So that would be, something that we would be purchasing on behalf of Milton American as well for that space. Because you have to have two different pitching rubbers to do that as well.
so the mound, you lost me, so that's an artificial mound?
It can be, it can be. You'll see it in Massachusetts, Tom, you'll see that more often than not, because people have a hard time with the weather. Maintaining both, particularly with the natural dirt, the different landing spaces that the two different dimensions would create.
Right.
We're open to either, in terms of trying to work through different things. And, we wouldn't look for CPC to fund any, if we did an artificial mound, we wouldn't look for any of that funding to fund that in any particular way.
What is the dimension of the rubber on the 70-foot?
So that would be 50 feet.
Instead of 46.
Instead of 46. It doesn't, 4 feet does not sound like much until you watch the two differences of the game. To put it in some perspective, a major league mound, if you watch the Red Sox tonight, is 60 feet. So similarly, 10 feet doesn't sound like much, but the difference between.
But it's 10 feet.
Oh, there's no doubt that.
For an 11 or
And for
12-year-old
12.
pitching.
Exactly.
That is
Huge,
Yeah, exactly.
You better put softball when they move youth softball when they moved the pitching rubber from 40 feet to 43 feet. And again, it was a big change for
Absolutely.
for everyone.
Yeah.
Hitters. Yeah, but
So how often would you change? Is this like every day you'd be changing, switching?
Not necessarily. So the majority of our spring season, the majority of our kids would still utilize Mary Sling primarily in the 46-60 dimension. It would be heavy use in terms of the 50-70 from, I would say, June through August. That's really our summer season where we have to go out of town more than we can play anywhere near Milton. And we also prevented from actually ever practicing on those respective dimensions as well, which, from a preparation standpoint and really helping the kids from that standpoint, it's a little bit of a challenge as well for the coaches that have to work with those respective teams.
Yeah. Great.
other questions? Great, and also congratulations on your election.
Oh, thank you very much. As we saw each other, as you well. So thank you.
New member of the Parks and Rec.
Oh, great.
Yes, yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So,
Oh, that's nice. I did vote.
Yeah, that's.
My sports are very limited to sailing. That's, so I didn't even know where the Mary C. Lane baseball field was.
well, hold it, yes, we did, because we funded.
No, I still didn't know.
That was the year she took a hiatus.
And I had no idea what the
Thanks,
field
Steve.
was. I just looked it up on Google Earth. I'm like, oh, that's.
There it is, yes. Well, thank you all again.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
yes.
Appreciate it, Steve. All right, Julie Kramer is here, for the Affordable Housing Trust in, well, Julie, or unmute. Julie, can you unmute?
Great. Hi there.
Hi.
Hello.
Can I show my Tom, I don't know if you have my
I can call it up because I did
since you gave me a heads up, I was prepared here. So let me do that.
Great, thank you. So,
Yeah.
great. And you'll move it for me, Tom? I guess I've never done this before. I'm
Yeah.
always in control. There we go.
I can move it.
Page one. So hello, everyone. I am Julie Kramer. I'm with the Milton Affordable Housing Trust. I'm the chair. I've been in front of you before, and I, speaking for the trust, very much appreciate your support for the trust fund. We've done some great work, and I'll talk about that at the end of the slideshow. But I'm here to talk about our current eligibility application, which we submitted in June, was it, or May? Anyways, the goal of the Affordable Housing Trust is really to address affordable housing needs in Milton. We really work to support local control of some housing initiatives. We engage in real estate activities, most recently we've worked with the lottery agents for the homeownership lotteries in town, reading through LIP applications and the lottery materials. One of the, I think, more important things that we do is we are able to make timely decisions because the funds are with the trust, and so we can take in requests really on a rolling application, and I think that's helpful to move projects along and get the support that these projects need pretty quickly in order to meet funding applications and deadlines and such. We also collect dollars from various sources, mostly from CPA, but there are some times that we get funding from, rather than inclusionary units, it's funding in lieu of. So, and we, manage these funds and try to do the best with what we have. You could go to the next one. So most recently, we funded an application from the Milton Housing Authority. I think you folks saw this application as well because it came into the CPC directly. And we have now met with them and are now in a position to award funds for their project at 65 Miller Ave, which is 39 units of elderly and disabled housing, with the average annual income of folks who are living there of about $19,000. So these are some of the more needy residents of Milton. The buildings, they actually don't show their age all that much because the Housing Authority has done just an amazing job with little money to keep the property in great condition and keep the residents safe. So, but they are 40 years old, so they're near the end of their useful life, as we like to say. If you can go to the next slide. So, the state housing authorities are, currently in a little bit of a tough spot, right? And there's few opportunities for extensive rehabilitation of some of these housing units. Some have actually chose to increase density at their sites and work with a partner and get funding sources made available for all kinds of other projects. But, for good reason, Milton Housing Authority is really focused on preserving these assets, not adding more units, keeping the project the size, and also, serving the resident profile that they've done for the past 40 years. So one of the programs is this high leverage asset preservation program. and the state will match 2.5 times of the local contribution. So Milton Affordable Housing Trust, with primarily CPA funds, awarded Milton Housing Authority $600,000, and that will be matched with about 1.5 in state high leverage asset preservation program funds. The scope is pretty for building of this vintage, window replacement, sliding door replacement, siding replacement with improved insulation, HVAC upgrades to some of the common areas and offices. There is an allowance for some of the second floor porch repairs, which, may present themselves as a problem once the siding is replaced and connections are more brought out to the open. So the total development cost is estimated to be 2.2. So with our funds and the matching funds, they're really close to what they need for this very important preservation project. So we have, we've asked you for $600,000. We know there's a lot of demands on these funds with some great projects. I heard a few of them today and a few of the last meeting. So, but it's really important that we show a continued and steady funding for the Milton Affordable Housing Trust. With some of our funds, we've funded the Shared Housing Services Office annual cost. We've contributed to the cost of the update to the 5-year housing production plan. We are really looking for opportunities to deepen affordability for new housing projects that are really pegged at 80% AMI. We'd like to see if there's a way to bring those closer to a 60 or 50% AMI. Funding the Affordable Housing Trust and allowing us the opportunity to have a seat at the table. Looking, as I said, about affordability levels and long-term restrictions, making sure these restrictions don't burn off, and that they're always available to, residents that are priced out of Milton. If you want to go to the next slide, just one more update. This was a prior funding award that we gave to Winter Valley Residence Building 6, which is under construction. If you want to go to the next slide, just a few more pictures. We funded $470,000. This was a long drawn out process. I'm so happy to see that they finally broke ground. For folks who might remember, it's 36 units of new construction, some community space. Project construction closing was in February of this year, and it's expected to be completed summer of 2027. And we were able to get our CPA funds at work sign up on their
Good marketing, Jordan.
Yeah.
I think you just photoshopped that in there.
No, I've been on site. It's there. It's there.
It's there. I didn't AI it, right? I didn't.
Right.
Fantastic.
Julie, thank you. That's great. And I have to say the Winter Valley, not the Winter Valley, well, both the Winter Valley and the Miller Ave projects, I think, are sort of as we designed this, right? As we have decided 4 or 5 years ago to fund the trust instead of us trying to grapple with the complexities of housing development. And also, as you said earlier in your presentation, without the flexibility of timing, that the CPC has had the once a year funding round. That Miller Ave project got funded, in short order, which was and it allows, and obviously, Earl
has done a great job to position that project to go forward and get that state match and obviously, yeah, some of the most lowest income residents in Milton. So I know I'm a member of the Affordable Housing Trust and representing here the trust and the CPC. So, but I do think the trust deserves some credit for and your leadership, Julie, for acting so swiftly on the housing authority's request.
Thank you. Yeah, Earl came prepared, had us do a site visit, really sort of drove home the fact that this match is literally the only way these units can truly be preserved.
Kathleen and Jenny.
So I just have a question. I don't think it's for Julie, but we have on our list another $200,000 request for Miller Ave. Is that in addition to the 600?
So
Because
we met with Earl at the very first meeting.
Yeah.
And we indicated to him that as we've done with all, as we did with Valley a couple of years ago, we encouraged them to meet with the trust. I think by the time Earl had come here, he had already made the initial presentation to the trust. So
we don't have this anymore?
They have withdrawn.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That was my question.
So 2 questions, Julie, thank you, and congrats on getting the other funding. So will the rehab require any dislocation of any of the residents, and if so, have you figured that out?
He doesn't think so. And, in my professional life, I've done some of this work, and, it's really important to get the right contractor involved, right? And they've got to, the windows can go, from the outside in, and then you finish up trim work. Usually residents have to be out of their units for a little while that stuff's going on, but it can be done. It really depends on, your staffing levels too, that there's someone always there to open up the door and close the door for the, for the general contractor. And it's a nuanced approach, but it can be done. I don't think he's expecting it. It's not in the budget currently that I have. It's really just, those are all like hard costs in the budget.
Yeah. Okay. And then my second question, actually, the first slide you had, a building with the solar panels. So I was wondering to what extent, not so this project, but other projects, is that a requirement that you have, or a heavy suggestion, or what's the history behind applying solar?
I would say it's a heavy suggestion. I would say that we really, want the projects we fund to do the best they can to support energy efficiency. And, solar, it was always something we pushed because there were other credits and other ways to fund them. That is slowly eroding, but, we still hope for the highest energy a project can afford to do.
Not on this one, though, I guess. Anyway.
Yeah, this
Sorry.
this one.
Yeah.
I don't think Miller Ave has plans for solar. But Milton Residence for the Elderly is built to passive house standards.
Yeah,
that's right.
Good. Kathleen?
Are we allowed to ask how much is in the trust funds at this point? The Affordable Housing Trust Fund at this point?
Sure.
Yeah, we're getting dangerously low. With these 2 funds, we're about at $1 million, which, my goal would always be to be a little bit higher than that. As 2 projects get rid of the $1 million, right? Or 1 project can, but I think it's really more important to just show some steady money in, because these deals don't happen overnight. And so if a project has to wait a second round or has to wait till our funds come in, so be it. But right now, because we haven't funded either one of those, the trust looks pretty healthy, but both of those are committed, over.
No, I was asking, you know, it's sort of net of
The
the.
net
assuming-
of those is.
Net of assuming, okay, thank you.
Which, and of course, the town farm project is stalled for now and, you know, it's been withdrawn, you know, so. There's still, at least some of us have some hope that that will get kickstarted again and some development can happen on town farm and that's gonna need, some CPA or.
Has
Right,
that,
but-
housing trust.
But in,
has that the proposer of that, there was one left, is he withdrawn, is? Proposal?
The select board / governor student trustees, withdrew.
withdrew the, all right.
So they took not positive action, but they took action, to.
They want
Yes.
to rethink it.
Cancel it, the RFP, yeah.
Yeah.
So, that was unfortunate, I think from a affordable housing point of view, certainly. So, I think the town or the government startup trustees hopefully will be, sort of thinking about a new idea, a new proposal.
Be nice if they'd have a public meeting at some time so people can let them know.
I think, I can't speak for them, but I agree. I agree. So,
It was pretty stale. I mean, the numbers. That RFP went out so long ago, the response was so long ago.
well, I think the respondents was interested in
Yeah.
engaged and had
Right.
several meetings with
Right.
the government student trustees. I think that the issue is the government student trustees were looking to the applicant to pay for the infrastructure improvements to Governor Stone Lane.
Yeah,
And that just makes the deal not viable. Affordable housing can't, affordable housing needs subsidy, they can't be subsidizing, the town's infrastructure. Those infrastructure demands are not unreasonable by residents of Governor Stone Lane, but. So whether a smaller development, I don't know what the right answer is, but.
Back to ground zero.
We're back to, I hate to say square one, I don't think Julie and I have been involved since square one. So we're back to some place that's behind where we were a few months ago or 6 months ago.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
But I think it goes to Julie's point about keeping.
The trust as healthy as possible.
Yeah, so that, I know that applicant asked for $500,000, I know in informal discussions. We were expecting that request to be raised from $500,000 to $1 million. So I think, as Julie said, $1 million can go quickly.
yeah, most of mine in other towns, it's enough.
Yeah.
Yep. It's between $500,000 and $1 million in most towns.
But the two projects funded are significant projects, and so.
It's
It's a great thing for CPA and the committee to have supported them. It's a good thing for the trust.
Yeah.
And I think the continued support at the committee is probably there.
No,
Julie.
and it, it's nice to have two projects now sort of under our belt,
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, any other questions for Julie?
Thanks, Julie.
Julie, thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
leadership and thank you for coming tonight.
Go USA.
Yeah.
We're down.
Is there any score? Is there any
Yeah,
score?
they're down one.
They're down one?
Yeah, sorry.
Thanks. Okay. All right.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, the next item on our agenda is. Where are we? Winter Valley Solar Lighting. And. Sarah. Linda Lee, I don't think it's here for that project. I don't see anybody that would be Sarah McLaren from Winter Valley, so I don't see her, and so the Milton Landing Boathouse project is, boy, we got, so I have an 8:50 and it's 8:54, we were in 4 minutes, we were running all sorts of behind and
So,
up to your time.
all right.
Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Matson, and I'm on the board of the Neponset Rowing Club. And I am at five, but I think this is the one. So those who aren't familiar with us, we are a small nonprofit based in Milton, and we row out of the Milton Landing down by 88 Ward. And our mission is to share the joy and the what can, for many of our student athletes, be life-changing benefits of rowing with the communities along the Neponset River. And we run junior programs, which are high school programs. That's really the bulk of our programming. But we also do middle school learn to row, and we have adult rowing programs, which is actually how I originally got involved. I was never a rower, and I saw a flyer, and yes, I got sucked into rowing. We are now a club. We used to be Milton Crew, and we converted to a club a few years ago. That is sort of the trend in US national rowing. And the Northeast is kind of the last area that is kind of migrating over to club programs. So by having a club program, our program can be open to athletes from all different schools, which was always the case in the fall. But in the spring, under the MIAA rules, it was only Milton High. So by opening the program up, it's still a majority of our athletes are Milton High, but we have athletes from Milton Academy. We've had athletes from Fontbonne. We've had an athlete from Dedham High. We've had athletes from BC High, even though they have a program. Sometimes it's just convenience of location. Our programs are open to all. So one of the great things about rowing is a lot of times we either get student athletes who have either can't continue on their sport because they don't make varsity for whatever sport they make, or we have student athletes who didn't think they were going to be an athlete. They weren't playing any sport. They try out for rowing, and they end up being a great rower. So, and then obviously our adult programs are really open to all. So, and we also have we also have a policy of a no questions asked scholarship. So if we do have a family who feels they have a need, they can't make, our fees are expensive because rowing is an expensive sport. We issue scholarships to those students. So I think this year we had 6 students on either partial or full scholarships.
And what's the total number of students in that?
It varies. Usually our goal is about 45 students a season. So it varies. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. I think this past spring it was a little less. I think it was like 38 or 39. So, so right now what we kicked off in November is a boathouse campaign. I'm sure you have all seen Dexter Southfield also is sharing the landing with us. The dock, we used to row off the yacht club dock, which is not a dock made for rowing. It's quite dangerous for rowers, actually. When Dexter Southfield moved in.
That's the dock right in front of the yacht club, or?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
So the docks are higher, so.
Yeah.
So when Dexter Southfield moved in, they brought a beautiful low profile dock. And they let us use it, and they let, kayakers use it. It's good for kayakers.
It's wonderful, actually.
Oh,
And that's further down the river.
It's
Further down the river.
And we've always, that's where we've always put our launches in.
Yeah.
So that was a game changer for us. First of all, just for safety, it's just a safer way to row. And then they put up we have always talked about having a shelter for our boats. For a long time, they were only kept up by the trees by where the farmers market is.
Yeah.
And then when the town plotted out the land and we started leasing our plot, then we store our boats there, but we have no cover. And we've had incidents of vandalism, cars backing into them. We've had some damage, we've had some bullet holes that were in them. So, after Dexfield, Southfield put up their structure, I think for a long time we were thinking, I don't know if you've ever seen what CRI has on the Charles River, they have a beautiful.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when Dexter Southfield put up their town, we realized there's other options that, because to put up a full building is a lot, so. So we also decided we would love to have something similar, as a place to store the boats and also to have changing rooms for the athletes, because right now there really isn't a space if they come down from school, or for them to change if they come down early in the morning before they go back up to school. And for, I would say, the past 5 winters, we bring our boats down to a place in New Bedford that very kindly lets us store our boats with them. They have a rowing program down there. For a while there, we were storing them in Hyde Park in a warehouse. So not ideal, because all that movement of the boats isn't good for them.
How many boats are we talking about?
We have a fleet of about 20 boats.
Those are
Yeah.
8.
Some are about 4 and 8s. Most of the fundraising we have done has gone into buying new boats, upkeeping the fleet. So the high schoolers, they use the better, more expensive boats. The adults use the older, heavier, slower boats, which is fine. Out of our whole fleet, there's a good 8 to 10 of them that are really, really good boats, and the rest of them are in different stages of aging. So we had a gala in November to kick off the campaign for the boathouse. We had it at the Adams Inn, which was nice because it was right on the Neponset, and we raised $38,000. The estimated total cost for the structure that we're looking at, Dexter Southfield structure is sort of the deluxe model. It costs them $550,000 to $600,000. When we met with the vendor that builds these structures, we were pretty new. We were not going to aim for that. It's because we're such a small nonprofit. Our fundraising is, we don't have deep pocket donors, so it's a lot of, we do ergothons and we do lots of piecing together the fundraising. So we are aiming for the sort of their bare bones structure. We're not getting a fancy floor, we're not getting fancy doors. We're getting sort of a safe tented structure to store our boats, with 2 sectioned off areas for changing rooms. And that's sort of a rendering that we did, so you could kind of have an idea of how this is our plot here.
So that's and then Dexter's behind.
Dexter's behind us, yeah.
And you'd be further away from 88 Wharf.
Yeah, so down close
People-
to, yes, this is
Yeah.
like the end.
You're way at where the original ramp is for.
Yes,
Kayaks.
yes, yeah. And we have right now we have a container there and a porta potty. So
It looks like the same size as Southfield.
it's a little bit smaller. Our footprint of our lot is a little bit smaller, so this probably isn't accurate how it looks. Their tent is actually a little bit bigger than ours. I think I have in here, it is a 40 by 70 foot, 14 feet high, can store up to 20 shells. So those are the specs.
So some of the differences that you're saying is in the interior finishes and.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned the floors.
We're not gonna have a floor.
Right.
Ours will be bolted into the asphalt. They have like a whole floor, that's, yeah, so it's nice, but. We've always been a scrappy organization, and so we are just to have the covering. And we feel, of course, this takes town involvement because we would need the permit and if we allowed to keep it up, we would need a variance to keep it up all year. But we're trying to, we want to be a partner with the town and continuing to make this space accessible, like, you know, it's a waterfront that people should be down and using, and I know there's been other talk about, you know, the area between 88 Wharf, like the park area, and redoing that, and, you know, there's a lot of space here that could look nicer, you know, and so we've talked about that too.
Well, hasn't the yacht club been using that area?
Yeah, so now they have like a lot, they also have a lot that they pay the town for,
Mhm.
and they have the old brick.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Has there ever been any discussion with either one of you groups about using the yacht club facilities for, instead of a porta potty, for crying out loud?
Yeah, it's better for our athlete. It's such a different, and they're not always there when we're rowing, like we're kind of there earlier in the spring than they are, and then,
Earlier in the morning.
yeah, we're there earlier in the morning. We're there earlier in the morning. They tend to like be there more in the evening after work, and so, yeah, so.
So do you have to pay the town for?
Yeah, so we pay a rent. I can't remember, it might be around 7,000 to 8,000 a month, possibly.
A month?
I feel like,
Wow.
yeah. So before we were just, you know, kind of squatters, honestly.
Yeah, you just
Like
had the
we had
shells in the
permission to
park,
keep
yeah,
our
yeah.
shells by the, you know, and then we would go and use the yacht club thing, and we paid for, I think now part of this, what we pay for is, you know, the electricity and the water, because there's hoses down there that we used to rinse off things, so before we actually had a lease, that's what we were paying for. So we did raise our 38,000. I asked in this application for 200,000, which is the rest of which is a big ask. But first, I guess if you have any questions.
Yeah. Questions?
Yeah.
So this doesn't allow for any growth, right? So any more than 20 boats. You have 20 boats.
Yeah, we have 20 boats. I think that with a program, I think that we have sort of an optimum size of how we wouldn't want to get too much bigger, actually, realistically, with just how many the coaches you need and the launches you need, but for all the safety things that you need to make sure you're having, the reality of our program is it really will always kind of need to stay around, I think, 45 to 50 athletes. I know they'd love to grow the adult program more, you know, but I don't in the immediate future see us all of a sudden getting much bigger. Yeah.
So you said that indicated that the tent then would come down in the winter?
Well, it depends on the permit you get from the town. So I know that Dexter Southfield got a variance so they can keep it up. They are made for snow, so they're snow bearing tents, and they also have to be particular hurricane wind proofed tent as well. So they can, ideally for us, it would be great to keep it up in the winter because then we don't have to move the boats to another area. Yeah.
So there's wear and tear on the rent every time on the tent anytime.
Yes, yes, exactly. Every time we put our ticket down, yeah. And then like there's sometimes like a vendor showed us like with the clear windows that you can see in, but though we found out those take a lot more wear and tear, so it's actually better just to have solid.
Liz, what's the town's awareness of your goals, your plan? I mean, obviously they're aware of you, you're paid rent in town. But you know, Nick Milano, the administrator, and the select board, have you met with the select board?
Not yet, no, but I know that, I don't know if it was our chair or if it was probably Becky has already spoken with Nick Milano. Somebody was going to reach out to him, start talking to him about this. So I think at first we made the assumption because Dexter Southfield was allowed to have one that the town would allow us as well, but then we realized we should never make assumptions. So,
I mean, it's not unreasonable to think that, but crossing the.
We've tried to be good stewards of our plot and our, you know, and the area around it, and We try to make sure our student athletes are, always well behaved and, you know, good citizens when they're down there. And for the most part, they're wonderful kids, but yeah, that would be a piece of it is.
You said that for Southfield had to get a variance to leave theirs up all year?
Yes, because it's something about a temporary structure and then there's a permanent structure one. So there's like a variance and I don't know the details of all of that, but I believe that they did, or did it come down?
I don't think
I don't think
it's come down,
No.
yeah.
Well, but I'm surprised that there would have been a variance. I mean, I
It
don't,
would have had to go through you, right?
yeah.
I think a temporary structure can only be up for 180 days.
Yeah, maybe might have gone jitty, but.
I think, I mean, I don't have a question, I think that would be, so that in between now and the final, application, I think those are the types of things we'd be looking for,
If we've talked.
what communication if we have with town,
Mhm.
even support letters from various town bodies that might have an interest in this.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And residents as well,
Okay.
town
alright.
bodies and residents.
And residents, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly.
Okay,
I mean, it's great.
Particularly maybe 88 or.
88 Wharf as a immediate neighbor is always.
Yeah.
Yeah, would be
Mhm.
helpful, and just-
And Southfield Dexter.
Yes. Yes, yeah.
I wonder whether you could approach the town and suggest a tax abatement until this was paid off. And that's tricky.
No, we don't pay taxes because we're
Taxes.
nonprofit.
They pay rent.
Yeah, oh, like.
Rental abatement, until you pay this off or something. Because it serves the town and, I don't know, I have
But it's,
no
but it's a
idea.
competitive bidding situation too.
Yeah.
Right.
They have,
Further.
they put on RFP.
Sure.
Yeah, they
Right.
did.
Rent the space.
We had to bid for
Right.
our plot.
In the bid.
Yeah. We did for the
And that's
plot.
to the select board directly? or-
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're custodians.
Of that.
Right.
Yeah, that whole process, yeah.
What I'm concerned about actually is the nature of the structure,
Mm-hmm,
is that we need to be getting more details about how permanent it is.
mm-hmm,
Because we've had issues before with eligibility and requests for things like a temporary stage,
mm-hmm.
in the land, that's not fundable by
Right.
CPC. And so, if it's a temporary kind of tent thing, I don't think that's gonna be something that we can pay for.
Okay.
So that if you can give us sort of more details about the structure that you've decided on,
Mhm.
and the fact that it's anchored into the tarmac and
Mhm.
all that kind of stuff. That would support the nature of the fact that it's a 12-month
So
structure.
I think if the town agreed to let it be a permanent structure,
Yeah.
not something we take out, yeah.
Right,
Because
because I,
that's really ideally what we want, because
Right.
the point is that in the winter, we have storage, we
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
a place.
right, we
Yeah.
couldn't be able to, as I said, I don't think we could fund something that was something that you took down in
That's right.
hurricane season and whatever.
Mhm, mhm. Okay, that's good to know, okay.
Is your lease a 5-year lease?
I was involved in this and I should
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I can't remember what we did. I did
mean-
think it was like a,
If you put that up, think it's gonna be permanent, and next time around, you don't win the lease.
I feel like it's a 10-year. I
Think
feel
so?
like they were longer, yeah. I feel like it was a 10-year lease.
How long is your lease?
Before
Yeah, I think it's 10. I think they were 10-year leases. But we're a few years into it now, so I can find that out.
Okay, Mr. That goes back to your,
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I mean,
questions.
well, I mean, docs are something that come out and docs get funded by CPC.
Yes, the
So,
docs have. them out.
Docs are not, docks and ramps and those come out,
Mhm.
so I think
Right,
it just
okay.
needs to, the nature of the structure has to be something a little bit more than, couple of.
Attention.
things like that.
Yes,
And your lease is relevant to this.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
Again, full application.
Right,
talking-
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about that. Yeah, no, I think that's a good point, definitely. Good.
What's the cost for a student to participate?
we are at 950 a season. So we fall and spring, so yeah, 950, yeah. And
And does the high school or any of those gonna pick up some of that?
No, they never did, actually, even when we were Milton crew. So that covers, the coaches, obviously, and the regatta fees tend to be expensive, so we built that into the pricing so that then when they're racing, we're not also,
Asking.
we changed the model of how we were pricing, because, and that also pays for buses, transportation, getting them to and from the races. So,
And when we talked before, did you say you had some scholarships too, or?
yeah, so we've been having a lot of discussion about this actually, but right now we have no questions asked. So if someone approaches the director and says they can't pay or they can only pay for half, then we fund their, So,
You don't turn people away.
we don't turn anyone away. I mean, our main thing, we've been really trying to, I think rowing sometimes has this real elite stigma to it, I guess you could say. We really, like, right before COVID happened, I was in talks with athletic director of the Boston Public School System, because we really kind of wanted to expand into the Boston schools that are closer. They need to be close to the landing, because getting there is a thing. But then COVID happened and it was getting too complicated, but we're really trying to diversify the program. We have rowers that end up rowing at college, and it was never on their radar that was a possibility. So we have rowers at Bates and Temple and, so that's been great to see. And we feel like any student who wants the opportunity should have it. So, but when you're a small nonprofit, that's not always fiscally, sometimes we've had discussions.
Yeah, no, there's a limit. Right.
So far we've been able to do it, so,
Good for you. All right, I think that's some of the, I think Kathleen's advice on the.
I think.
I'm talking about how the long-term lease, permanent C or whatever of the structure, would be.
And have some conversations with the town and where,
exactly.
right, okay.
And support letters.
And support letters, yes.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, nice to meet you.
Doing very well.
Nice to meet you.
All right, the last two on the Houston Avenue and Bioswale, I just put on there, they had really withdrawn, but I just, in case they changed their mind and showed up, I put them on the agenda. And then, two didn't show, because the Brookfield LED lighting, which is a project from, McCarthy and the consolidated. You see, he manages the consolidated, facilities department, I believe, in town, and then the Winter Valley Solar Lighting, which I wasn't sure is eligible, but,
Is it a maintenance or is it?
it's under affordable housing. It's solar lighting in the pathways,
In the
in
driveway.
the driveways. It doesn't really include the, I mean, so I'm not sure it's eligible, so. Anyways, but.
Although they could probably go to the trust and ask for money. Not necessarily CPA.
But that's, well,
If you're
the
using
trust would have-
CPA funds.
They'd have to fund it from their other
From
money,
other money, right?
not from the CPA money.
Right.
So,
How about the Randolph South Playground? Did we hear from them?
yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, that was,
That was in the first
Ed
meeting,
Thomas?
the first meeting,
One of the-
and he was, so I watched that. I wasn't at the meeting, but that's, yeah, a playground one, but doesn't know where.
Yeah.
So we've heard from everyone except, well, one has withdrawn, or two have withdrawn essentially. Obviously the Affordable Housing Trust did us a favor by funding the Winter Valley project, so that isn't. We don't expect would advance to the eligible, to the full application stage. Houston Avenue Bioswale has sent me an email saying they intend to withdraw. And Winter Valley Solar Lighting might not be eligible, so that brings us down to 19 projects if it.
Wow.
Great.
And, so let me just stick with the agenda, updates on interviews, I mean, that's a quick update, but, I expect either tonight or early tomorrow morning, the formal offer will be made by the town's director of HR to our preferred candidates. This, in the past week, recommendations were, references rather, were requested and reference checks were done by the town's HR director. They're glowing references, so that was a thumbs up. So Carla, Petey, informed me tonight or this afternoon that either the formal offer letter will go out tonight or first thing tomorrow.
Yay.
So progress on.
Chinese says, yay.
And the candidate was ready and willing to start as soon as she could.
Yeah,
So,
the candidate,
so Jenny might get some relief before long.
yes. Yes.
Next meeting.
Yeah. Next.
Yeah.
So this brings us to the next meeting. I just put on there in case we wanted to discuss this a little more, but discussion regarding committee recommendation process and vote on July 20th. So obviously this is the eligibility phase. The reason I put it on there is obviously the complicating factor of our two of the projects requesting us to speed up our timeline and bring a recommendation to the fall town meeting. So obviously we can have a full and should have a full discussion on the 20th. That's really what the meeting on the 20th is for. To discuss that since we
We have a deadline.
Yes, we have a deadline and we have no more projects, other than potentially hearing from the LED, lighting at Brooksfield, project. I think we're gonna have some tough I guess I put it on there to say we're gonna have some tough decisions, obviously, not so much at the eligibility phase, but going in, I think whatever we determine is eligible, we need to write one of those letters that we've done in the past, asking people to sharpen their pencils and rethink their dollar requests because, again, we'll have some decisions to make of, do we fully fund some projects and then really have to say no to a significant number of projects, or partially fund partially fund a lot of projects, but realizing that a partial funding might not be enough to get some projects across the finish line. So that's the dilemma that we're gonna have, and we can obviously debate on the 20th when we meet again, but I want to just open it up now just for other comments about how we structure that discussion on the 20th, or any other comments people want to talk about leading into that meeting. And we still have Al and Robbie on the phone.
So I think we need to determine for sure whether the bond costs we have go against a particular set aside, or that it's just general to our funding, because that's an important, that if we bond more, that will continue to be an issue.
Yeah.
So I think we should look into that and talk about that.
Yeah, we can get an answer on that before leading.
And Nick did say that he was gonna try to get some better figures for us, so that the next time we talk, maybe we'll have a better handle on what our total budget.
Well, I gave him the cheat sheet on the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines. So that could, help him with his thinking about how to divide up the.
Yeah,
Overall.
but I mean, overall, how much money we're gonna have to give.
Right, oh, yeah.
It's probably not gonna be a whole lot different than the 189. And we can discuss whether we wanna continue to set aside $50,000 for admin, or do we wanna cut that back?
Yeah.
It's good to have some, in case we have a real estate issue or need
Right.
appraisal or whatever, but we haven't come close to spending the
No,
50,000.
yeah, but I mean, considering the gap we have.
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, these are all nickels and dimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But
I
good
think
point.
in the past, when we've done this, it was pretty much a yes, no, is it eligible? Went through that very quickly.
Yeah,
The discussion was really about how much do we guide them in terms of the funding request.
yeah,
And, I think that's where the discussion will.
yeah, and some of that's the constructing of the letter and reminding them, I think, we did this in some cases verbally, at these meetings, we were
Yeah.
helpful.
And typically when we write our letters, we do bring out some of the
Yeah,
things, the committee thought you should look more further into.
So we
this,
can take some time on
To
the
do that.
20th to say,
Get
okay,
some of that, yeah.
the notation on the letter needs to
Right.
emphasize community support or public accessibility or, the various things
Yeah.
we,
Yeah.
so yeah, we should definitely do that for the 20th.
So for the 20th, so we would have the list, I think, we've talked about most of those projects are eligible, I don't
Think
think
so.
we have
I think
anything.
the only one I'm questioning at this stage is the solar,
Yeah, I don't think,
And the Brooksfield lighting.
Brooksfield Lighting is the same project we funded
we
for
funded
GeoField.
it, we did it before,
It's a recreation.
Oh, recreational lighting.
Right.
Yeah, we did for
Yeah.
that.
right?
Yeah, so it's for,
Yeah.
I think that is eligible, whether it's a priority is
Yeah.
another question.
Yeah.
But that's
yeah.
that's a question for the fall, not for.
So I think, so I think part of this is that we should be, on the 20th, we would sort of go through the list, I think most of them things are eligible. But so
Okay.
just a question about how we would frame the letter back to the people to say, okay, fine, we're not
Yep.
questioning the eligibility, but we, we don't have enough cash, so what can you do if we give you less? And B, what else can you tell us that would sort of support your argument for?
And then I think I agree, and I think then the other obviously big discussion is how do we deal with the Tucker?
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm less concerned about the fire station. I'm concerned about the timing, and everything coming together. That's, but that's really out of our hands, right? Either
Right.
we're gonna have the information or we're
Mhm.
not. And that's really on the fire station building committee and the town administrator, and, we can only do what we can do there. And they have a lot more deadlines than we're imposing, to meet the ballot by the fall, so, but that's on that. I think the tougher issue for us is the Tucker request, because it's one that's not dependent on the ballot, as we
Mhm.
determined. And it's, I think they've made a pretty strong case that project has to be done in the summer, and because it's such a big project, it has to be bid out in the winter and spring to be ready for summer construction. But an award of any size
Mhm.
takes money out of our spring bucket, if you will. And do we want to do that? There's, as Pete said earlier, it's precedent setting. Which may not be a bad thing, but it is precedent setting. And it definitely, restricts how much, it will reduce the amount of the pool we have for the springtime meeting. So,
One thought I have, and we'll discuss this a lot more than 20th. Leading up to now, every year we funded studies and reports and things like that. And I really personally like the idea of supporting getting some of these things implemented that we did the studies for.
Yeah.
And for me, I'd give priority to continuing to fund or finishing up a project rather than bringing on a whole new project. And so I think that's a discussion we'll have on the 20th.
yeah, and it's nice, it was neat, John Kiernan saying the bridge is gonna be,
Yeah.
done this fall, which is great.
That's when he talks about the bridge.
Well, but he's got two other projects, that have been funded
Yeah.
worth 115,000 that haven't started either, so.
Right.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Pete. I think we're getting there. It's been a little slower. Got the field dugouts, so, up and running, the
Beverly Park is under
Beverly
construction.
Park is under construction, so, but it is, it's an exciting time for CPA because I think we'll begin to have all these tangible reminders of the benefits of CPA all around town, but it has taken, a little bit of time to get there. So, all right. If people have other, thoughts in between meetings, obviously email me and I'll make sure the agenda speaks to what we need to discuss, but
Yeah.
we'll do the eligibility determinations, inform letters with our comments, and then have a specific discussion about the fall requests.
And then could we also add a review of the final application, because I think we can tweak that a little bit.
Okay, we can definitely add that.
So, just as an example, it would be useful to have on there, have you been funded before? If so, how much, just so that we're like, it seems like every question is like, how much do you get? All right, I don't know where.
Yeah, okay, I'll definitely put that on there and we can.
And I get these updates from accounting all the time, and I've been to the committee, but
Well, that'd be great.
status of every project. And I am hoping by the 20th, we will have an update of this that goes through the end of June, the end of the last fiscal year. The problem is, like I said to Nick, accounting doesn't want to hear from me anymore because it's the end of the fiscal year and they're gone nuts.
Okay, I will put that on there too, just in case we do have an update of that spreadsheet.
That'd be great.
We can take a look at it.
And I'm happy to take on contacting these people to find out the status and things like that, so we can.
Yeah.
So, if this person is offered and she accepts, would you take responsibility then for onboarding her?
Inviting her.
Well, definitely inviting her, but doing a little onboarding.
I think we should, yes, but I think we should share that since you've been doing some of the tasks. A lot of that.
Definitely.
But, yeah, so. Yeah, I mean, this past year has been a great sort of reminder of what, our staff person Julia did in the, like. Obviously, the minute taking we've been doing, the
letters.
the letters and also just the scheduling, right? The scheduling of which one, and I did all of that in the absence of a staff person this time. So it's, yes, I think Pete, you and I should probably sit with her as she, once she's on officially. And since we do the bulk of the staff like work, administrative work, we should talk about, that with her. So, yeah, I would try to, once she's on board, schedule a meeting for the four of us.
Yeah. Great.
Kathleen, the grant agreements for this year's projects, I don't even know how many there needed to be, or.
I mean, they were for the ones that we voted.
That we voted that start
in the spring.
Money's available to pay this.
That start now.
Yeah,
I haven't done any, nobody's asked me to do any of them, so.
So
I
that's
should probably tee that up.
try to identify what projects require
Yeah.
one, some don't,
Right, okay.
Maybe we'll invite you to some. Because that's something a staff person could help with.
Right.
And not in terms of the legal stuff,
Right.
but just in terms of communication with the applicants of like,
Yeah.
okay, connecting the two of you, whatever, just
Right.
making sure the ball is moving forward.
Or that the right people.
Yeah. Yeah,
or that they respond, they don't get a draft from you and you don't hear from them for 2 months.
right,
Yeah, that's usually what happens.
yeah, so a staff person could.
And your willingness to continue to do this on behalf of the committee.
As I'm retiring, sort of.
big
from the
yes,
practice,
really?
well, yeah,
So you're
Well, there's-
sailing more?
yes, and there are clients that have been happy to say, thank you very much for working with me all these years, but I'm done.
All right, I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second.
Second.
All right,
Third.
the call for a vote. Jenny,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Hal,
Yes.
Robbie,
Yes.
Tom, yes. Unanimous. We'll see you on July 20th at 7 p.m. Thank you.